Admiral James Wilson stood tall in the great Galactic Council chamber. His face showed nothing, but inside, he was angry. For 3 hours, he had listened to the alien leaders make more and more demands of Earth. They wanted more ships to protect their worlds. They wanted more of Earth's new medicines. They wanted rights to mine on Mars. And they offered almost nothing in return. The council room was huge, with seats rising up on all sides like a bowl. 200 different alien species sat watching. Some looked almost human. Others were like nothing anyone from Earth had ever imagined before. All of them were now silent, waiting for Wilson's answer to their latest demand. Wilson looked at the data pad in his hand one more time. Then he looked up at High Counselor Trell. The old alien had blue skin that seemed to glow under the bright lights. 4 eyes blinked at Wilson, waiting. "No," Wilson said simply. Just that one word. Trell's upper eyes blinked in confusion. "I don't understand, Admiral. This is a fair request. Earth has the resources." Wilson shook his head. "For 50 years, Earth has given to the Council. We've sent our soldiers to die in your wars. We've shared our medicine. We've helped build your stations. And we get treated like children at the adults' table." He turned off his data pad and put it in his pocket. Then he did something no one had done in the 300-year history of the Galactic Council. He turned his back and walked toward the exit. Behind him, the human delegation, 6 men and 6 women from Earth's government, stood up together. Without a word, they followed Wilson. The council chamber erupted into noise. The Vex representative, who looked like a giant ant standing on 2 legs, made loud clicking sounds with its mouthparts. The Moore ambassador, who was like a clear jelly with floating organs inside, changed colors rapidly from blue to red to yellow. Even the rock people, who were usually as quiet as the stones they resembled, began grinding their rough arms together, making a sound like sandpaper. "Order. I demand order." High Counselor Trell shouted, but his voice shook. The old alien knew what this meant. Humans were new to space, only 200 years since their first ship left their solar system. But in that short time, they had become important. Their ships protected many trade routes. Their doctors had cured diseases that had killed millions. Their workers built things no one else could. And now they were leaving. In the hallway outside the chamber, Lieutenant Anna Rivera caught up to Admiral Wilson. She was young, but she had a sharp mind for politics. "Sir, the Galactic credit is already dropping in value. The news of us walking out is spreading fast," she said, checking her wrist computer. "They'll be begging us to come back by tomorrow." Wilson kept walking, his steps steady. "Let them beg. We've been patient. We've been polite. We've followed their rules. And what has it gotten us? They take and call us young and inexperienced while they do it." The rest of the human team followed in silence as they reached their ship. It was small compared to most council vessels, but it was fast and well made, like all human ships. "What now, sir?" asked Dr. Thomas Lee, the science advisor. Wilson looked at his team as the ship's door closed behind them. For the first time that day, he smiled. "Now we wait. The Council has never understood humans. They think we're simple and predictable. They're about to learn how wrong they are." As their ship pulled away from the massive Council station, the communication system began to light up with incoming calls. Wilson ordered them all ignored. The panic had begun, and humanity was just getting started. 3 days passed since the humans walked away. In that short time, the galaxy changed. On the trading floors of Centaurid Prime, alien merchants shouted and pushed. Screens showed numbers falling fast. The Galactic credit was losing value by the hour. Many traders lost everything they owned. Dox, one of the richest beings in the galaxy, sat in his office on the luxury world of Vermal. His long fingers tapped nervously on his desk as he watched his wealth disappear. Dox had built his fortune on human medical nanites, tiny machines that could fix almost any illness. Now the supply had stopped. No explanation. No warning. Just nothing. Call Earth again, he shouted at his assistant. Sir, I've tried. No one is answering, the assistant said, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly in fear. Docs threw a glass against the wall. How can they do this? Don't they understand who I am? But the truth was becoming clear to everyone. Humans didn't care who you were. They had simply stopped. Not just medical supplies, but everything. Their ships no longer protected trade routes. Their workers no longer showed up at space stations. Their scientists no longer shared new ideas. They hadn't declared war. They hadn't made threats. They had just gone quiet. Far away, at the edge of known space, Commander Cragg of the Krill Empire watched with interest. The Krill were warriors, reptile-like beings who respected only strength. For years, they had been held back by the combined forces of the Council and humanity. The humans have left the Council, Cragg said to his officers. His scaled face showed no emotion, but his tail swished with excitement. This is our chance. Within hours, Krill warships began moving toward disputed territories. Without human ships helping to guard the borders, many worlds were now unprotected. Back at the Galactic Council headquarters, High Counselor Trell called an emergency meeting. The chamber that had once been orderly was now filled with scared representatives shouting over each other. We must offer them something, cried the Vex representative. What do they want? Just tell us what they want, said another. Trell raised his hands for quiet. We have sent 17 messages to Earth. They have not answered any of them. From the shadows of the chamber, a small gray alien watched silently. Plex was from a race of information gatherers. His large eyes missed nothing, and his species was known for their intelligence work. You were warned, Plex said softly, stepping forward. My people told this council for years, do not underestimate humans. What do you know about them? Trell asked desperately. They are young as a space species, yes, but on their world, they fought wars that would make even the Krill afraid. They went from simple flying machines to space travel in less than 100 years. They cured diseases that killed millions of their people. They survived disasters that should have ended them. Plex moved closer to the council table. And how did we treat them? Like children. We took their help and gave little in return. We ignored their ideas because they were too young to understand. A message alert sounded, and Trell looked down at his screen. His 4 eyes widened in alarm. The Krill have attacked the Moore colony near human space, he said, his voice shaking. Our ships in that sector can't get there in time. The Moore world has 3 billion people, someone shouted. Plex watched the panic spread through the room. Now you will learn what humans do when they are truly angry, he said, and what they do when innocents are in danger. No one noticed the small light on the human delegation's empty seats. It had just turned from red to green. For the first time in 3 days, Earth was listening. While the galaxy fell into chaos, Earth remained calm. In the big government building in New Geneva, Admiral Wilson stood before the Unified Earth Council. The room was quiet and ordered, nothing like the panicked Galactic Council chamber. 20 men and women sat at a round table. They represented all parts of Earth and its colonies. Unlike the Alien Council, they all had equal seats, equal voices. Report, Admiral, said President Morgan. She was older, with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Wilson stood straight as he spoke. The Galactic Council has sent 17 messages asking us to come back. The first ones were demands. Now they're begging. And our people? Asked Council Member Jackson, who was in charge of colony safety. All human ships have returned to our space, Wilson answered. No one has been left behind. Defense Secretary Reed touched a button, and a big map appeared in the air above the table. It showed where every human ship was located. We've moved ships to protect our colonies, Reed explained. But we've been careful not to look aggressive. We don't want anyone to think we're planning to attack. President Morgan nodded. And the technology situation. Science Director Dr. Patel, A small woman with quick hands stepped forward. The embargo is working better than we expected. We've stopped sharing all advanced technology. Many alien worlds are discovering how much they depended on us. Especially the medical nanites, added Council Member Torres. Trader Doc's company has lost 80% of its value in 3 days. Admiral Wilson looked at a message on his datapad. We just received word that the Krill Empire is testing boundaries. They've moved warships near several disputed areas. Were we expecting this? President Morgan asked. Reed nodded. Yes, the Krill respect only strength. With our ships pulled back, they see an opportunity. Wilson's datapad beeped again with an urgent message. His face became serious as he read it. The Krill have attacked a Moor colony world near our space, he said. 3 billion people are at risk. The room went quiet as everyone considered this news. The Council ships can't get there in time, Wilson added. They're asking for our help. President Morgan stood and walked to the window. Outside, the rebuilt city of Geneva spread out beneath the mountains. Once, long ago, this place had been destroyed in a human war. Now it stood as a symbol of how humanity had learned to work together. For 50 years, she said quietly, they've treated us like children. They used our soldiers to fight their battles. They took our ideas but gave us no credit. They mined our worlds and gave us little in return. She turned to face the Council. They thought because we were new to space, we were weak. They'd never understood that our history made us strong. Should we help the Moor colony? Asked Dr. Pottle. They're innocent civilians. President Morgan looked at Admiral Wilson. Can we reach them in time? Yes, Wilson said. The deterrent battle group is near that sector. They can be there in 6 hours. Morgan nodded slowly. Send them. But make it clear, this is a humanitarian mission. We're saving innocent lives, not rejoining the Council's defense forces. She looked around the table. It's time to show the galaxy who we really are. Not just what we can build or what we can fight. She paused. But what we stand for. Wilson nodded and sent the orders. Across space, human warships began to move. The Krill were about to learn what happened when you mistook human restraint for weakness. And the Galactic Council was about to see what they had taken for granted all these years. The human diplomatic station orbited Earth like a shining silver ring. It was here that aliens came to speak with humans, not in the Galactic Council chambers. A small ship approached the station. Unlike the flashy vessels of most species, this one was simple and ancient. It belonged to Nyx, a member of the Watcher race. The Watchers were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, but there were very few of them left. Inside the station, Admiral Wilson waited in a plane room with a table and 2 chairs. A window showed the blue-green Earth below. When Nyx entered, Wilson stood. The alien was tall and thin with gray skin that seemed to glow faintly. Its eyes were like silver pools with no pupils. Watchers had seen the rise and fall of many civilizations. Thank you for coming, Nyx, Wilson said. Nyx bowed slightly. It is an honor, Admiral. Few in the galaxy have done what you did. Walk away from the Council while they were still speaking. Wilson offered Nyx a chair and then something unexpected. A cup of tea. Those who knew Wilson only as a military leader would have been surprised by this polite gesture. Your strategy is working, Nyx said, taking the cup carefully in long fingers. The Council has finally realized how important humans are to the galaxy. Wilson looked out at Earth. We didn't want this fight, Nyx. For 50 years, we tried to be good partners. We gave more than we got back. Our ships protected their worlds. Our doctors healed their sick. Our workers built their stations. He turned back to the alien. And what did we receive? They took our technology, but gave little in return. They called us young and ignored our ideas. They put our soldiers on the front lines while their ships stayed safe. Nyx's silver eyes seemed to look through Wilson rather than at him. This was why many species found Watchers uncomfortable. They seemed to see things others couldn't. What do humans truly want, James? Nix asked, using Wilson's first name, not the official demands. What does your species seek in your hearts? Wilson thought for a moment. Respect, he said simply. Not fear, not control over others, just to be treated as equals, to have a real voice. Nix nodded slowly. I will tell them this. But be prepared. Some in the council fear humans too much to ever respect you. Wilson's face showed surprise. Fear us? Why? We've never threatened them. That is precisely why, Nix said. Most species who reach your level of technology become aggressive, trying to take what they want. You had the power to demand more, but instead you asked politely. They don't understand this restraint, so they fear what might happen if you ever stopped being restrained. Wilson's data pad beeped. He looked down and his face became serious. The krill attack on the Moor colony, he said. Our ships are engaging them now. Nix stood. Then I should leave. The next days will determine much. The alien moved toward the door, but stopped. Remember, Admiral, how you fight this battle will show the galaxy who humans truly are. After Nix left, Wilson watched the battle reports coming in. The UES deterrent, Earth's most advanced warship, led the human forces against the Krill fleet. The Krill had expected easy victory against the helpless Moor colony. Instead, they found themselves facing the full might of humanity's best ships. And for the first time, the humans weren't holding anything back. Across the galaxy, the Council watched in stunned silence as humanity revealed just how powerful they really were. 2 weeks had passed since humans walked away from the Council. The Krill attack on the Moor colony had changed everything. In the Council chamber, alien representatives watched giant screens showing the battle. What they saw shocked them. The Krill had sent 30 warships to attack the defenseless Moor colony. They expected no real opposition. The Moor people could not fight, and Council ships were too far away to help. But then, human ships appeared. The UES deterrent, led by Captain Lisa Taylor, dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the colony. 5 other human warships came with it. They were outnumbered 6-1, but Captain Taylor showed no fear. This is the UES deterrent to Krill forces. She broadcast on open channels. You are attacking innocent civilians. Leave now, or we will make you leave. The Krill commander laughed. His scaled face appeared on the communication screen. 6 ships against 30. Humans are braver than they are smart. Taylor's face showed no emotion. This is your only warning. The Krill ships attacked, firing their most powerful weapons at the human vessels. Everyone watching expected to see the human ships destroyed. Instead, something impossible happened. A blue field appeared around the deterrent, absorbing the Krill energy weapons. Weapons that should have cut through the ship's hull did nothing. New shield technology, whispered High Counselor Trell as he watched from the council chamber. They never shared this with us. The human ships began to fire back. Their weapons were precise, hitting only the Krill ship's engines and weapon systems, avoiding their life support. Human fighter ships moved like they knew what the Krill would do before they did it. In less than 20 minutes, the battle was over. No human ships were destroyed. All 30 Krill vessels were disabled but not destroyed. No Krill soldiers died. The Moor colony was safe. Captain Taylor's voice came through the communications again. Krill forces, your ships are disabled. We will allow you to use escape pods to reach the nearby moon. From there, your government can come get you. In the council chamber, the alien representatives watched in stunned silence. They could have destroyed them all, said the Vex representative, its mandibles clicking softly. Why didn't they? Because that's not who they are, said Nix, who had just returned from Earth. The Watcher moved to the center of the chamber. Humans fight to protect, not to destroy. They showed exactly enough force to stop the threat, nothing more. High Counselor Trell stood slowly. Those ships, that technology, they've been holding back. All this time, they had capabilities they never showed us. Of course they did, Nick said. Would you have shared everything with those who treated you as lesser beings? A message appeared on the main screen. It was from Earth. President Morgan's face looked out at the Council. Galactic Council, she said, her voice calm and strong. The human fleet has protected the Moore colony for humanitarian reasons. We could not allow innocent lives to be lost when we had the power to save them. But understand this, our actions do not mean we are returning to previous arrangements. If you wish to speak with humanity, we are now ready to listen. But only if you are ready to speak to us as equals. The message ended. The council chamber was completely silent. Then, one by one, the representatives began to understand what had happened. Humanity had not just left the council. They had changed the rules of the game. And now, they were inviting the council to play by new rules, or not play at all. 1 month had passed since humans walked away from the council. Now, they were coming back, but on their terms. The Galactic Council chamber looked the same, but something was different. The human seats, once placed lower than the senior council members, had been moved. Now they sat at the same height as everyone else. Admiral Wilson led the human team into the room. The chamber went quiet as they took their seats. High Counselor Trell looked nervous. "We welcome the human delegation back to the council," Trell said, his 4 eyes blinking rapidly. "We are eager to resolve our misunderstandings." Wilson nodded. "We are ready to talk. But first, let me be clear about why we left." He stood and looked around the chamber. 200 alien species watched him. For 50 years, humans have been part of this council. We have fought in your wars. We have healed your sick. We have helped build your stations and ships. And yet, we were never treated as true equals. Wilson touched a button, and a list appeared on the big screen. "These are our terms," he said. "They are not suggestions. They are requirements for humanity's return to the council." The list was simple but powerful. 1. Equal seats on all council committees. 2. Fair exchange of technology. Both sides share equally. 3. Balanced defense duties. All species must help protect all space. 4. Recognition of human space as sovereign territory with special protected status, the same as the founding council species. The chamber was silent when Wilson finished. The aliens looked at each other. Some seemed angry, others worried. Then, surprisingly, Elder Gorn stood up. He was from the Draxist hierarchy, one of the oldest and most conservative groups in the galaxy. His skin was like stone, and he moved slowly as he rose from his seat. "I have lived 10 human lifetimes," Gorn said, his voice deep and rough. "I have seen species rise and fall across the stars. 20 Earth years ago, I voted against letting humans join the council." He looked directly at Wilson. "I was wrong." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Elder Gorn rarely admitted mistakes. "Your species has shown us something important," Gorn continued. "Not through force, but through its absence. You could have attacked when you left. You could have used our weakness against us. Instead, you simply stepped back and let us see your true value." Gorn turned to the other council members. When the Krill attacked the Moore colony, human ships saved millions of lives. They could have destroyed the Krill fleet, but instead, they showed mercy. This is not the behavior of a species that should be treated as lesser. One by one, other council members began to speak. Most agreed with Gorn. A few did not, but they were outnumbered. High Counselor Trell finally spoke. "Admiral Wilson, the council has heard your terms. We need time to discuss them." Wilson nodded. "Take the time you need. But understand this. Humanity will no longer accept less than equal treatment. Those days are over." As the human delegation left the chamber, many aliens watched them with new eyes. Not with fear, but with respect. Outside, Lieutenant Rivera walked beside Wilson. "Do you think they'll accept our terms, sir?" Wilson smiled slightly. "They don't have much choice. The galaxy economy is still struggling without our participation. The Krill are testing other borders, and now they've seen what our ships can really do. What if they say no? Rivera asked. Wilson looked back at the council chamber doors. Then humanity will find its own path among the stars. We don't need them as much as they need us. But in his heart, Wilson knew the council would agree. Not out of fear, but because they finally understood. Humans were not just another species to be used. They were partners worth having. 6 months had passed since the council accepted humanity's terms. The Galactic Council chamber looked very different now. Gone was the old design where important species sat higher than others. Now all seats were arranged in a circle, with everyone at the same level. It was a small change that meant everything. Admiral Wilson, now with a new title, High Representative Wilson, stood with High Counselor Trell on a balcony overlooking the massive space station. Below them, ships from hundreds of worlds moved in careful traffic patterns. Was it worth the risk? Trell asked, his blue skin reflecting the starlight. You could have started a war. Wilson watched a human ship pass below, carrying medical supplies to a distant world. We knew it wouldn't come to war. Humans understand communities better than most think. We've spent thousands of years fighting each other, but also building together. We knew exactly how valuable we were to the galaxy. Trell's 4 eyes blinked slowly. The Krill have asked for peace talks. Did you know? Your handling of their attack impressed them. They respect strength used with control. Wilson smiled slightly. That's good news. Inside the council chamber, a historic meeting was taking place. For the first time, representatives from Earth's colony worlds were being accepted as full council members. Mars, Europa, and New Terra now had their own seats. Dr. Lee, the human science advisor, stood before the council, explaining new medical technology that would be shared with all worlds. Unlike before, this sharing now went both ways. Alien technology was coming to Earth as well. The new medical stations will be built in 10 locations across the galaxy, Dr. Lee explained. They will be open to all species, with costs shared equally by all council members. In the back of the chamber, Lieutenant Rivera watched with pride. She leaned toward Wilson, who had just entered. 6 months ago, they barely listened when humans spoke, she said quietly. Now they're completely silent when Dr. Lee talks. Wilson nodded. It wasn't our strength that changed things, Rivera. It was our absence. Sometimes people don't value what they have until it's gone. After the meeting, representatives from many worlds approached Wilson. Some had once been the strongest voices against humans. Now they sought Earth's friendship. The Vex representative clicked its mandibles respectfully. My people wish to establish a direct trade route with Earth. We have much to offer each other. Even Elder Gorn, ancient and usually distant, stopped to speak with Wilson. My people have lived among the stars for 50,000 years, he said. We thought we had seen everything. You have taught us that we can still learn. As the day ended, Wilson returned to the human ship that would take him back to Earth. President Morgan was waiting for his report. How do you think it's going? She asked over the secure communication line. Wilson looked out at the stars. Better than we hoped. The new agreements are holding. Trade is flowing again. The Krill are staying within their borders. And the council? Morgan asked. Do they respect us now, or do they just fear us? Wilson thought about Trell, about Gorn, about the many aliens who now looked at humans with new eyes. Respect, he said confidently. Not fear. They finally see us as we really are. As the ship moved away from the station, Wilson watched the massive structure grow smaller. Humanity hadn't just found its place among the stars. It had changed the very way the galaxy worked. The panic that erupted when humanity walked away had settled into something far more valuable. True partnership. And that was worth more than all the stars in the sky.